They built cities where thousands bathed in marble pools and ended up paying for bread with sacks of rusty coins. They had an army that conquered the entire world and died because they hired their enemies to guard the gates. This isn't science fiction. This is the fall of Rome. But today, it's not about gladiators. Today, it's about money, about debt, about inflation, about mistakes that nearly every country repeats. And yes, you already guessed it. This isn't just history. It's a warning. Stay. Because what you're about to hear might change how you see everything. Asterisk imagine. Columns, marble, legions marching down the Appian Way. Rome has 1 million people, the largest city in the world. They have sewage systems, public baths, aqueducts, and a financial system as messy as your Telegram history after 5 beers. So how did an empire that built aqueducts and crushed dozens of nations end up unable to pay its own soldiers? Let's start from the beginning. Mistake number 1. War after war after war. Rome didn't just like war, it was addicted to war, like a modern influencer chasing likes. Every new emperor wanted to be a hero. And how do you become a hero? Right, start a war. 1. Great. Bring in prisoners, throw a triumph, hand out cash to the people. Lost. Well, stuff happens, just don't let the public find out. But war isn't just swords and shields. It's massive spending, armies, logistics, veteran pensions, fortress construction. So Rome starts printing money, not with a printer, of course. They lower the silver content in the denarius, their main coin. At first, pure silver, then 90% silver, then 50, then 10. By the end of the empire, the coin had more copper than silver, just like modern 10 kopeck coins. And what happened? Inflation. Brutal, relentless. In the time of Emperor Augustus, 1 bushel of wheat cost 24 denarii. 300 years later, the same bushel cost 25,000. Imagine, you walk into a store, and bread that cost 100 rubles yesterday now costs 1 million. You open your wallet, and all you find are little metal discs with the face of an emperor who's been dead for 10 years. People stopped trusting money. They started bartering, paying with fish, wine, goats. The economy rolled back centuries. Mistake number 2. The tax system turned into torture. Rome needed money, a lot of it, so they decided, let's squeeze the rich. But the rich aren't stupid. They started hiding assets, transferring land to slaves, fleeing to the provinces. So Rome said, fine, we'll take from those who can't escape, and began squeezing the provinces. Egypt, pay up. Gaul, pay up. Africa, pay double. But when you squeeze a lemon to hard, eventually, there's no juice left. Farmers went bankrupt. Fields were abandoned. Cities emptied. Can you even imagine? Rome, the empire that built aqueducts and conquered nations, couldn't afford a loaf of bread. But that was just the beginning, because the next mistakes were even worse. They hired their enemies. They stopped believing in the future. They gave citizenship to everyone. And worst of all, they kept the people entertained while the empire died. If you stay until the end, you'll understand why the fall of Rome isn't just history. It's a blueprint of how not to run a country. And yes, this is happening again, even today. Stay with me. The next part is even darker. Mistake number 3. Slaves. Millions of slaves. Rome was built on slave labor. After every war, tens of thousands of prisoners. They worked in mines, on plantations, in homes. But when the conquest stopped, there were no new slaves. And slaves, they weren't workers. They didn't pay taxes, didn't consume, didn't buy bread. The economy lost its internal demand. No one to buy goods, no one to pay taxes, no one to defend the borders. And then Rome made its deadliest mistake. Mistake number 4. They hired the barbarians. Yes, those same Germans, Goths, Vandals, whom Rome had called savages for centuries, started serving in the Roman army. Why? Because Romans didn't want to fight anymore. Too hard, too dangerous, too poorly paid. But the barbarians, warriors by birth, they were hired, paid, given land, but there was no money to pay them. So they were told, here's some land, live how you want, just protect the border. In other words, Rome started breaking itself apart, handing its own territory to the very people meant to protect it. Like if you, as a landlord, told your neighbor, live in my room, watch the door, and if anything happens, you can just take the keys. And what happened? They took the keys. Mistake number 5. No innovation. Rome barely developed technology. Why bother? Everything ran on slaves. Why invent a steam engine if you can put 1,000 slaves on a mill? The economy stagnated. No productivity growth. No new industries. No middle class. Only the rich and millions of poor surviving on state handouts. Yes, you heard that right. Rome gave away bread and games. Bread for free. Gladiator fights for free. Water for free. This was the ancient version of welfare, folks. And while the people watched others get slaughtered in the Colosseum, emperors thought, perfect, they're distracted. No one will notice the treasury is empty. Then came the 4th century. The empire split into 2, East and West. The East would survive another 1,000 years. Constantinople, Byzantium, gold, diplomacy, smart taxes. The West was like a guy who spends his salary in 3 days, takes loans, then wonders why he got kicked out of his apartment. 3,456 years from the founding of Rome, that is, 476 AD. The last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, sits on the throne. He's 16 years old. His father, a general, placed him there. No one respects him. Suddenly, the Germanic chieftain Odoacer arrives. No siege, no battle, just walks in and says, listen, you're not an emperor, you're a kid. I'm taking power. No money, no army. Cities are empty. The empire is over. And he doesn't kill Romulus. He just goes home and lets the emperor, along with his wealth, go live in southern Italy. Just like that. No thunder, no lightning. The greatest empire vanished because it couldn't pay the bill. So what can we learn from this? Rome didn't fall because it was suddenly destroyed. It fell because it destroyed itself. It lived on credit. It devalued its currency. It stopped trusting its citizens. It hired enemies to protect itself. And it entertained the people instead of building the future. Sound familiar? Maybe we're not building aqueducts, but we're building social media. And sometimes we're getting entertained while the economy burns. If you like this video, hit like, not just for fun, but because now you know. The fall of an empire starts not with the army, but with accounting. Subscribe, because in the next video, I'll show you how the Soviet Union repeated the exact same financial mistake, but with oil and ration cards. For now, tell me in the comments, which of these 5 mistakes was the worst? Inflation, debt, slaves, barbarians, or free bread? And remember, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Until next time, stay sharp and don't devalue your coins.